والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار وخلق الجان من مارج من نار فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان رب المشرقين ورب المغربين رب المشرقين ورب المغربين فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان مرج البحرين يلتقيان فبينهما برزخ لا يبغيان مرج البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يخرج منهما اللؤلؤ والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يخرج منهما اللؤلؤ والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان وله الجوار المنشآت في البحر كالأعلام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يسأله من في السماوات والأرض كل يوم هو في شأن فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان سنفرغ لكم أيها الثقلان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يا معشر الجن والإنس إن استطعتم أن تنفذوا من أقطار السماوات والأرض فانفذوا لا تنفذون إلا بسلطان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Muhammad. Ustadh, I just spoke to Ustadh Zaied. He's running a little late, but he will be here inshallah. So we're just gonna just change the gears a little bit, and we're gonna pray 2 rak'ahs qiyam, and then we will have the lecture with Ustadh Zaied. Okay, the qiyam prayer will be led by Dr. Muhammad.
استقيموا واستووا يرحمكم الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. الحمد لله فاطر السماوات والأرض جاعل الملائكة رسلا أولي أجنحة مثنى وثلاث ورباع يزيد في الخلق ما يشاء إن الله على كل شيء قدير. ما يفتح الله للناس من رحمة فلا ممسك لها وما يمسك فلا مرسل له من بعده وهو العزيز الحكيم. يا أيها الناس اذكروا نعمة الله عليكم هل من خالق غير الله يرزقكم من السماء والأرض لا إله إلا هو فأنى تؤفكون. وإن يكذبوك فقد كذبت رسل من قبلك وإلى الله ترجع الأمور. يا أيها الناس إن وعد الله حق فلا تغرنكم الحياة الدنيا ولا يغرنكم بالله الغرور. إن الشيطان لكم عدو فاتخذوه عدوا إنما يدعو حزبه ليكونوا من أصحاب السعير. الذين كفروا لهم عذاب شديد والذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم مغفرة وأجر كبير. أفمن زين له سوء عمله فرآه حسنا فإن الله يضل من يشاء ويهدي من يشاء فلا تذهب نفسك عليهم حسرات إن الله عليم بما يصنعون. والله الذي أرسل الرياح فتثير سحابا فسقناه إلى بلد ميت فأحيينا به الأرض بعد موتها كذلك النشور. من كان يريد العزة فلله العزة جميعا إليه يصعد الكلم الطيب والعمل الصالح يرفعه والذين يمكرون السيئات لهم عذاب شديد ومكر أولئك هو يبور والله خلقكم من تراب ثم من نطفة ثم جعلكم أزواجا وما تحمل من أنثى ولا تضع إلا بعلمه وما يعمر من معمر ولا ينقص من عمره إلا في كتاب إن ذلك على الله يسير. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. وما يستوي البحران هذا عذب فرات سائغ شرابه وهذا ملح أجاج ومن كل تأكلون لحما طريا وتستخرجون حلية تلبسونها وترى الفلك فيه مواخر لتبتغوا من فضله ولعلكم تشكرون يولج الليل في النهار ويولج النهار في الليل وسخر الشمس والقمر كل يجري لأجل مسمى ذلكم الله ربكم له الملك والذين تدعون من دونه ما يملكون من قطمير إن تدعوهم لا يسمعوا دعاءكم ولو سمعوا ما استجابوا لكم ويوم القيامة يكفرون بشرككم ولا ينبئك مثل خبير. يا أيها الناس أنتم الفقراء إلى الله والله هو الغني الحميد. إن يشأ يذهبكم ويأت بخلق جديد وما ذلك على الله بعزيز. ولا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى وإن تدع مثقلة إلى حملها لا يحمل منه شيء ولو كان ذا قربى. إنما تنذر الذين يخشون ربهم بالغيب وأقاموا الصلاة ومن تزكى فإنما يتزكى لنفسه وإلى الله المصير. الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Inshallah we'll get started with the lecture with Ustadh Zaied. As mentioned, he'll be talking about the topic of Ihsan in Ramadan. Since Ramadan is a few weeks away, we thought it would be beneficial to have a lecture on this topic. So inshallah, Ustadh Zaied will be talking about that. In addition, there will be a Q&A a little bit later on with Ustadh Zaied. So look forward to that inshallah.
السلام عليكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Good, how are you? My apologies, everybody. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك وأنعم على حبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purify our intentions in this night, that He makes these moments of ibadah and moments of going closer to Him in worship, and that He places benefit in it for us today, and that He makes it beneficial for us on the day that we meet Him, inshaAllah. There was a day once where the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam overheard his companions discussing the fate of two men that they knew, so two of his other companions. And these two men that they were talking about, one of them had died about a year ago, a year prior to them speaking, and he had died in battle as a shaheed. So he fought alongside the Prophet ﷺ, and he was killed as a shaheed, which is the highest way you can die in Islam, dying in battle for the sake of God. The other man had just died recently, a natural death. So about a year after the first man had passed away in jihad. And the Sahaba were praising the first man who had died a shaheed over the second. And the Rasul ﷺ chimed in. And he said, how do you know which of the two is actually better than the other? The second man was righteous, he was a good man, and he had a full year of salah more than the other man, and he fasted one additional Ramadan that the other man did not get to fast through. So perhaps it's possible that even though the first man died a shaheed, this second man, because he was righteous and he got to live another year of righteousness, was elevated above the first man. There's no way for you to know. Now I don't know if they opened with the ayat from Surah Al-Baqarah about Ramadan, did they? Did we recite that before the salah? No? So I'll go over them very briefly inshaAllah, and then I'll come back to this hadith. Allah says in Surah Al-Baqarah, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَاتٍ فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية طعام مسكين فمن تطوع خيرا فهو خير له وأن تصوموا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولعلكم تشكرون وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداعي إذا دعان فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي لعلهم يرشدون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduces Ramadan in Surah Al-Baqarah with these 4 ayat. And He says, O you who believe, fasting has been written or made obligatory upon you as it was made obligatory upon those who came before you. And these are a certain small number of days that are counted. So whoever was sick or traveling during this time, you should make it up in a different time. And I'll skip over that ayah. And then Allah continues, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. He says this month of Ramadan is the month in which the Quran was sent down as a guidance to mankind, and with evidences or miracles of its guidance, and furqan as a criteria between right and wrong. So whoever witnesses the month should fast it, and whoever was sick or was traveling, you can make up the month or make up the days at a different time. Allah wishes for you ease and not hardship. And you should continue or complete the full period and then make takbir of Allah, that because He guided you and so that you can be thankful to Allah. And if my slaves ask you about me, O Muhammad, tell them I am close. I respond to the call of the caller if he calls me. So let them respond to me and believe in me so that they may be successful. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduces the month of Ramadan in the Quran. What I want to do today is I want to go over a reminder of Ramadan to begin, and then we'll wrap up with some practical tips of Ihsan, or how to practice Ihsan in Ramadan. How many of you were here about 3 months ago when we did the first, I know they did multiple atikafs on Ihsan, but how many were here the first time I gave the talk on Ihsan during these atikafs? One sister, and Na'il of course, Muhammad, 4 of you, alhamdulillah. So some of you may remember, the 4 of you who are here, but I'll give a brief definition of what Ihsan is in general. Ihsan, our definition comes from the hadith of Jibreel, one of the foundational ahadith of this tradition, where the Rasul ﷺ, Jibreel asks the Prophet ﷺ a series of questions and then answers them for him. And the Prophet ﷺ was asked, what is Ihsan? And he said, Ihsan is that you worship Allah as if you can see Him, and if you can't see Him, know that He sees you. This is the definition of Ihsan. And we discussed in some detail that night that what this definition is talking about is that there's a level of worship that you can reach where you're worshiping Allah in such awe and in such love, because it's as if you can see Him in everything around you. So in your own soul, in the relationships in your life, in the world when you traverse it and you walk through it and you travel through it, in the circumstances that play out in your life, you can see Allah and you can see the beauty and the magnificence of Allah, and so you're so moved by it that worship is no longer an issue of duty. It's no longer an obligation. It's become something that you do with a real internal desire and passion and love and care. That's what Ihsan is. It's when you do a worship for Allah in a way that is so beautiful and so meaningful that you would be proud that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looked at it. That you're in such awe of Allah, this being Allah deserves that I give Him so much more. Right? This is what Ihsan is. So when we're discussing Ihsan in Ramadan, that's the concept that we're trying to come to. But let's begin with just a general reminder, and there's a reason why I'm doing this. But let's just begin with a general reminder of the blessings of Ramadan. And I'm going to start with that hadith that I opened with, where the Prophet ﷺ, for those who don't know, if you die a shaheed, if you die in battle, or if you die in any designation as a shaheed, as a martyr in this religion, you are elevated to really just 1 or 2 ranks below the prophets. So you have the prophets of Allah, you have the Siddiqeen, and you have the Shuhada. Those are the 3 highest levels of believers in human history. On the Day of Judgment, these are the 3 highest levels you can be in. The Prophet ﷺ heard the companions talking about a shaheed, and then a man who had died a normal, natural, boring death, quote unquote boring. And he told them, it's very possible that that second man, because he was righteous and had a full year more, and then he specifically designated a full Ramadan more, you really don't know which of the 2 are actually better. Ramadan, when done correctly, can be a source of distinction in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you go through Ramadan with the appropriate attitude and with the appropriate energy, and you practice it in the right way, it could distinguish you amongst some of the greatest people in human history. So many of us in this hall, just judging by the faces, look like we were born Muslim. And most people here look like they're around at least 15 years old, except for maybe one brother. At least 15 years. So at least maybe say 5, 10 Ramadans you've had. Some of us are a little bit older than that. We've had 20 some odd Ramadans. However many Ramadans you have done appropriately could distinguish you and elevate you in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you feel like I've never done Ramadan appropriately, this coming Ramadan could be the distinguishing factor. That one extra Ramadan could elevate you in a huge way. In another set of a hadith, the Rasul ﷺ tells us about how the unseen realm, the parts of Allah's creation that we don't see, change during Ramadan. So for example, the Prophet ﷺ tells us that the gates of heaven are closed and the gates of hellfire are open. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Rasul also tells us that there's a night, you guys all know this, there's a night in Ramadan that is worth how many nights? 1,000 nights. This is an unseen reality. How does one night equal 1,000 nights? This is in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. The Prophet ﷺ also tells us that in this month, all of the mischievous devils that travel through the world whispering to mankind to do evil things, Allah locks them up, or at the very least, prevents them from having that impact on people. And this hadith repeats it. The gates of hell are closed, the gates of heaven are open, and then a crier comes out in the heavens and cries out and says, O seeker of good, come forward. And O seeker of evil, stop. And every single night in Ramadan, Allah has necks that He saves from the hellfire. Meaning every single night in Ramadan, there are people that Allah chooses. This person, hellfire has become haram upon him. The Rasul continues in another hadith that every single day in Ramadan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes to Jannah and He commands some additional decoration be put in it. And He commands Jannah and says, beautify yourself, for my most beloved slaves are preparing for you. And He's talking about the people of Jannah. Go ahead, but the questions will be at the end, but go ahead. Sure, go ahead.
There's a famous quote that says, you should build a dam before the water comes, right? So what are some things that, Ramadan is coming up pretty shortly, so what are some habits that we can implement in our daily lives just so that by the time Ramadan comes that we're prepared, and our deeds are ready?
Beautiful question. What are some things we can do to prepare for Ramadan from now? Yeah, so we're going to get there. That's where I'm leading up to. They gave me an hour. I had to fill it all. No, I'm just joking. No, just joking. So we'll get there inshallah. But when we talk about Ihsan, and I was going to leave this till much later, but I'll make the point now. When you talk about Ihsan, one of the things that has to be there is a level of intentionality and a level of awareness and a level of readiness. And one of the best ways to do that, I'm sure many of you have heard a lot of the hadith I'm going to mention today. I don't think I'm giving most of you anything new in this introduction. But every year we go through these hadith because every year it excites you again. Because every year right before Ramadan, it feels like it's been a while since the last Ramadan. And you can start, every single one of us has a million things that we wish we had done better since the last Ramadan. And you might feel some rust on your heart. You might feel some staleness. And so these hadith are recited and repeated every single Ramadan so that we can get our energy up again, right? Because so that we can remember this gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. But, so I'll get to your question inshallah. But in all these hadith, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is mentioning how Allah is changing the unseen realm during Ramadan. Now the fascinating thing is, the ulama comment on these hadith in two ways. One of them, they say, is that the impact goes from the unseen to the seen, meaning Allah is actually opening up the gates of Jannah and bringing them closer, so people get this higher energy and they feel more passionate. Allah is actually chaining up the devils so that He gives you a greater opportunity to do good. That's one way to look at the hadith. But the scholars also mention you can look at these hadith from the reverse angle. That because of all the worship, because of all the focus, because of all the increased ibadah, these things begin to change in the unseen realm. Meaning because the slaves of Allah are preparing, and then they actually begin to engage in fasting and reading Quran and praying and making dua more and more, the heavens begin to open up. And hellfire begins to close as an effect of our actions and not the other way around. In a series of hadith, the Rasul ﷺ mentions that Ramadan is one of the greatest ways of forgiveness. So he says, for example, in the hadith that I already mentioned, every single night in Ramadan, there's one narration of that hadith that every night Allah chooses 70,000 people to save from the hellfire. That seems like a very large number, but Allah is the most merciful. But every night, might be the night Allah chooses your neck and He says, you were so sincere and beautiful in your worship in this night, I've made the hellfire haram on you. You'll never know. You'll never know. But never lose hope. That's the point with these ahadith. Every single night. You may have had 10 bad Ramadans before this. The Ramadan coming up, you may have the first 10 days are horrible, the first 20 days are horrible. But one night, one moment of sincere ibadah might do it, where Allah looks and says, this was so sincere, I'll save you. In another hadith, the Rasul ﷺ says that the 5 daily prayers are sources of forgiveness for everything that is between them. And Jum'ah to Jum'ah is a source of forgiveness for everything that is between them. And Ramadan to Ramadan is a source of forgiveness for everything between them. So if you feel like last Ramadan, I did my best, I did well enough, I still think I have some room to grow, but at least I fasted it all, I prayed it all, so on and so forth. If you do it again this Ramadan, all of your minor sins between that last year, Allah will overlook and forgive you for them. In 3 very famous ahadith, the Rasul ﷺ says, whoever fasts Ramadan with iman, with belief in Allah, and a sincere intention where you're seeking nothing but Allah's pleasure, Allah guarantees you all of your sins will be forgiven. And whoever stands the nights of Ramadan in prayer with iman, with belief, and seeking Allah's pleasure, Allah guarantees you that He will forgive all of your sins. And then Allah says, and the Rasul says, and whoever stands the night of Qadr in prayer. So if you can't make the whole Ramadan, at least do Laylatul Qadr in prayer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises that He will forgive all of your sins that were before that. There are several other blessings of Ramadan. I'll mention just a few of them before we go on, inshallah. The Rasul ﷺ says in a hadith that Allah brags about us to His angels. So Allah comes, brings His angels before Him, and He says, I want you to look at my servants on the earth. Look at how I tested them with food and drink and sexual desire, and they spent the whole day staying away from it. And Allah boasts about them to us. And then He tells them, I want you to bear witness, O angels, that every single morsel of food they have refused to eat, or drop of water they have refused to drink, I have elevated them a rank in Jannah because of it. So for every moment in Ramadan that you feel that hunger or that thirst, Allah boasts about you to the angels. I want you to know how much I love that slave, and that because of this one act of holding back, I'm elevating him or her in Jannah. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, there are 2 moments of happiness for the believer. Who knows the first one? It's the first moment of happiness for the fasting person. My apologies. The first moment of happiness for the fasting person. Yes. When they break their fast. And how about the second one? Someone else. So the first moment of happiness is when you break your fast. The second one? Go ahead. When you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right, so this is a linguistic promise from Allah. You know that happiness that you feel the moment Maghrib comes in and you get to put something in your mouth? You get to take that drink of water or that whatever it is that you like to break your fast on? That moment of happiness will be multiplied infinite amounts over. But that's the type of happiness you're going to feel the moment you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you fast. In another hadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, this is a hadith Qudsi. He says, every form of worship that a human being does, I have a reward. Like there's a known reward for it. Except for fasting, that reward is secret. Why? Allah continues. He says, because it's done for me and me alone, and I will reward it on my own. And so there's no actual known limit to the reward of fasting, especially fasting Ramadan. This is true of every fast, but especially fasting Ramadan. There's no actual limit. It's a secret. Only Allah knows. And one could imply from this, or derive from this, I should say, that your sincerity, the ihsan, the level of beauty and excellence in your fast will dictate how much Allah rewards you for that fast. And this is true, by the way, of every form of worship. Ibn al-Qayyim says about this reality of intention, he says when you do an act of worship, it goes up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in one of 2 ways. If you did it with intention and you did it with beauty, it goes up blowing, like glowing with nur, with light. And Allah will look at it and boast about it to the angels. And then say, I want you to send it back down and elevate my slave with it right now in his or her life. And the other way it goes up is that it goes up without any nur, no light. Because you just did it, like I just did the basics that I had to do. I just made sure I didn't break the rules. I prayed, I did my whole salah. I actually did salah, but was I really focused in it? No. It goes up. And Allah looks and He says, all right, reward it, like put it in the book, I'll give it to him on the Day of Judgment. And so one could imply or derive from these hadith that there's no limit to the reward of fasting. One day of fasting appropriately, Allah may reward you more than a lifetime of good deeds. And another hadith that's very well known, the Prophet ﷺ says, the breath of the fasting person, so that smell of almost like that milk breath that almost comes out when you're fasting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that is more beloved to me than the smell of musk is to you. It's sweeter to Allah, that smell. And another hadith, it's a hadith called the hadith of Yahya, talks about the Prophet John, where Yahya was giving a sermon to the children of Israel. And he goes through all the different forms of worship that they should do for spiritual reasons. And he mentions fasting, and he says, fasting is like a pouch that you have on your side full of musk. Everywhere you go, people smell the effects of the musk, but no one knows where it's coming from. Because this is the reality of fasting. No one actually knows that you're doing it. If you're doing it right, nobody actually knows that you're doing it. But people will notice. Do I have access to that? Oh, that does. Okay, great. People will actually notice the impacts in your character and in the way that you generally carry yourself. So see, these are the blessings of Ramadan. Now, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Why is Ramadan so blessed? It's not rhetorical. Why is Ramadan so blessed? Exactly. What's your name? Kareem. Well done. Because it's the month in which the Quran came down. In fact, we have a hadith from the Rasul ﷺ. It has some weakness in its chain, but the hadith seems to be sound overall with its meaning. That all of the major scriptures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were revealed in the month of Ramadan. So they say the scripture that was given to Ibrahim was revealed on the first day of Ramadan. The Torah was revealed on the 6th day of Ramadan. The Gospel of Jesus, peace be upon him, was the 13th. The Psalms of David was the 18th. And then you have the Quran on Laylatul Qadr, which some place obviously on different nights. But this month is made special specifically because it's the month of revelation. It's the month of the Quran. And Allah mentions in the ayah why the Quran is so powerful and special. I'm not going to spend a long time on it, but it's always good to go into this. Allah mentions 3 reasons why the Quran is so special, that it's worthy of a full month of celebration. Number 1, it has guidance. It's going to tell you what you should do in your life and how you should do it. Number 2, and this is one of the reasons why the Quran is so unique as a book. In the guidance itself, there are miracles and evidences that it is a miracle from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we had more time, I would go into some examples. But there's linguistic miracles, there's predictive miracles, there's prophecies, there's these spiritual truths that it speaks about you that you can only find when you engage with the Quran fully. And then number 3, it says it gives you the criteria for right and wrong, i.e. it's going to give societies a moral compass of knowing where the limits of human intellect can go and where the limits of human ambition and intuition should go. So for these 3 reasons, the Quran is dedicated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as being very special. And because this is the month in which the Quran came down, it's a month that we're going to celebrate. How do we celebrate the Quran? Again, it's not rhetorical. How do we celebrate the Quran? Understanding. Someone said reading. Someone said a third one I didn't hear. Reciting, okay. Tajweed wa tatbiq, that's a good one. So that we recite it with the proper tajweed and that we actually implement it in our lives. Anybody else? Applying it, yeah. Believing in it, that's a beautiful one. Understanding the meanings of ayat, definitely. Living it, that's a beautiful way of putting it. How does Allah want us to celebrate the Quran in Ramadan though? Everything you just said was so beautiful. How does Allah ask us to celebrate it? Who said that? By fasting, yes. Allah explicitly says in the ayah, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. So whoever, Allah says, this month of Ramadan is the month in which the Quran came down. Guidance and evidence and signs and furqan. So whoever witnesses the month should fast it. The way you're going to celebrate the Quran is to fast Ramadan. The way you're going to celebrate the Quran is to fast Ramadan. Does anyone know why or want to take a guess why? What is that connection? Why do we fast to celebrate the Quran? Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, Allah yaftah alayk. So she's saying that half of ibadah, half of worship is to hold yourself back from haram. And so by fasting, we're holding ourselves back from quite a bit. And so we're actually living out the fundamental message of the Quran. That is a very profound answer, probably more profound than the one that I wanted to bring up. So we'll wait until the answer that I am thinking of. That's a beautiful answer, and that actually has a lot to do with what I'm going to say later. But there's a less profound connection, I will say, between fasting and the Quran. What is the reason in other ayat that you can think of? Does Allah give us a reason why we fast? What's fasting supposed to cultivate in you? Taqwa. Yes, there's a specific ayah. We read in the beginning. Fasting has been made obligatory upon you as it was on the people before you so that you can be people of taqwa. Okay? Where is that connected to the Quran? Who remembers the second ayah from Surah Al-Baqarah? تفضل يا أختي. Exactly. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts Surah Al-Baqarah by saying, this is the book, there's no doubt in it, it is guidance for the people of taqwa. It's guidance for the people of taqwa. And so Allah is saying, this month of Ramadan is the month in which the Quran was revealed. This is a month to celebrate the Quran. I want to prepare you for the Quran. And so in the celebration of the Quran, I want you to fast. I want you to fast because fasting is going to cultivate taqwa, and taqwa is your key to engaging the Quran properly. If you're not coming to the Quran in a state of taqwa, you're not actually going to be able to engage it. I want to take a slight detour here to elaborate on this point a little bit. You know, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or I should say Aisha radiallahu anha, the wife of our beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam, discusses in a long hadith how the revelation to the Prophet ﷺ began. How did Allah begin revelation? You know where she started? She started about 6 months prior to the Quran actually coming down. She said it started, number one, with the Prophet having all of these dreams. Every night he'd have a dream, and he'd wake up, and the dream would come true exactly as he saw it at night. And that would go on for about 3, 4, 5 months prior to the actual first meeting with Jibreel alayhi salam. And then she said he would start to walk in the streets and strange things would happen, like a rock would say Salaam alaikum, or a tree would say Salaam alaikum, and he would be baffled, like what is going on? And then she said, Allah threw the love of seclusion into the heart of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he began to seclude himself in Ghar Hira for long periods of time, and then she continues the explanation of what happened on that fateful night. So Allah, in preparation for the Prophet ﷺ to be introduced to the Quran, pulled him away from everything. Pulled him away from food, pulled him away from drink, pulled him away from his wife and his kids and his family, pulled him away from society. She says, He threw it into the heart of the Rasul ﷺ that he made him love seclusion. We see the same exact thing with Musa alayhi salam. When the first time Allah talks to Musa alayhi salam, He prepares him for it for 10 years. Musa gets exiled. He gets thrown out of Egypt by the brother that he was raised with, Fir'aun. So he lives and grows up in this magnificent house after Allah saves him. Allah now wants to prepare him for revelation. The first step, you're going to get exiled from Egypt. You're going to get lost in this random place called Midian. You're going to find a wife there. You're going to marry her and you're going to work for her father for 10 years in the middle of nowhere. And then you're going to leave and you're going to get lost in the desert. And this is what happens. Musa gets lost in the desert for Allah knows how long he's lost in the desert with his family. Until finally, he sees a fire in the distance that nobody can see but him. The way the ayah says it, he's the only one who can see the fire. No one else can see it but him. And so he tells his family, I see a fire in the distance. Why don't you wait here? Let me go see if I can come back with some light or some guidance for us. And then in the depths of the night, in the darkness of the desert, after all of that seclusion, Allah reveals Himself to Musa alayhi salam. The next time when Allah wants to give Musa the 10 commandments on the tablets, He tells Musa, leave your people and you are to go essentially on a 40-day fast, alone in the desert. Leave Bani Israel and you go on your own. And in that state, Allah gave him the revelation and met him again. And then subhanallah, after the Rasul ﷺ establishes Medina, finally, after he's exiled and he's sent to Medina and he finally begins to establish something, that's when Ramadan is revealed. And Allah makes this connection of, I want you to celebrate the Quran by fasting so that you can grow your taqwa in this month, so you can connect with the book of taqwa. And so, the connection between fasting and the Quran is that, number one, Allah wants you to get yourself in a state where you can actually engage with the Quran properly. The Quran is only guidance for those who come to it seeking its guidance appropriately. And Allah is explicit about this in the Quran. يَهْدِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا وَيُضِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا. Allah will guide many through this Quran and He will allow many to be misguided through it. And in more explicit ayat, Allah says, Allah will use analogies in the Quran that the believers will know this analogy is from God. And the disbelievers will find a way to make fun of it. And you guys see this in the modern world today. Someone will pick something from the Quran and mock it, and to you as a believer, you'll be like, that sounds beautiful and amazing. The way you come to the Quran is going to dictate what you get out of it. So Allah is saying, I want you to celebrate the Quran by fasting so that you prepare yourself to read the Quran at night. And then the second thing is, Allah is telling you, I want you to seclude yourself. Revelation, to prepare for revelation, a part of the preparation is that you come to a state of seclusion. And that is the essence of what the fast is. And this is where now we're going to transition into Ihsan in fasting. All of you know the basic, we all know the very basic rules of fasting, right? You don't eat, you don't drink, and you don't do that other thing that you're allowed to do in marriage for a set hours of the day. From what time to what time? Pretty much from the beginning of Fajr until Maghrib comes up. All right, until sunset. We all know the basics of fasting. As long as you do that, you've done the basics. Imam Ghazali now tells us what are the levels of ihsan in fasting. And he says there are 3 specific levels. He says the first level is what he calls the amma, the general level. And this is what most Muslims do. What I just said. I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to eat. And any major haram I'll stay away from. That's the general level of fasting. Then he has what he calls the fasting of the elite, or the fasting of the special, however you want to translate it. And he says this is where you find a person detaching themselves from most other forms of entertainment and distraction. And so they're going to eat a lot less during the month of Ramadan. They're going to drink a lot less even when it's allowed. They're going to copulate a lot less even though it's allowed at night. But they're also going to detach themselves from any form of distraction that's not ibadah specific. Right? So I have to go to work, so I'll go to work. That's ibadah. but I'm going to stay away from the TV, I'm going to stay away from the social media, I'll stay away from socializing. This month is not about that. That's only the second level. The third level of fasting, he says, is what he calls the fasting of the elite, the top of the top, the cream of the crop. And he says these are people that they fast in Ramadan from everything other than Allah. Meaning these people sit in a room, their whole month of Ramadan is just dhikr. It's just worship and dhikr, that's it. Minimal food and drink just to keep themselves going so that they can do more worship and dhikr. Minimal sleep so they can keep themselves going to do more worship and dhikr. That is the elite of the elite. Who here thinks they can do the elite of the elite fast? You almost raised your hand. A smart move. Love, inshallah. Got one sister in the back. I certainly don't. There's no way I can imagine myself for a full month not being able to, for example, go to work or see my child or spend time with my wife or see my parents and my siblings and my cousins. It's a very difficult thing. I can't imagine doing that. It's a very special part of Ramadan, actually, that you spend it with your family. But we can hope to maybe achieve that second level. And that's what I want to talk about today. If you want to practice ihsan in your fasting, I started with that long introduction that I started with to get ourselves in the mindset of what Ramadan is supposed to really be. Most Muslims, let's be real with ourselves, most of us, we enter into Ramadan with a sense of trepidation, at best, with a sense of anxiety, and at worst, with a sense of annoyance and frustration. Like, man, Ramadan is coming, I gotta wait this whole month before I can have fun again. I gotta wait this whole month before I can eat cereal in the morning again, or whatever it is you like to eat in the morning. I gotta wait this whole month before I can actually sit up at night and watch TV or watch a movie without my father or my mother telling me I should be in the masjid praying. Or it's gonna be so annoying I have to act like I'm worshiping all month. Right? That's the worst of it. The best of us normally come into Ramadan with fear, with nervousness. It's going to be so difficult, it's going to be so tired. And there's almost a sense like, yeah, I know I want to make the most of it, but I really just want it to be done. I just can't wait until it's over. And so when I went through all those hadith about the blessings, I didn't have time or the energy really to go through it in a way to really get us into it. But I wanted us to remember all of the blessings of this month, because when you know and you remember how special it is, it'll help you start to prepare for it. But then I wanted to create that specific connection. This month is special because of the Quran. Because of the Quran, Allah wants you to fast, because fasting will grow your taqwa and it brings you to a state of seclusion. The more you bring yourself to a state of seclusion, the more you're going to connect with the Quran. The more you connect with the Quran, the more all these beautiful blessings are going to come to you. So much so that one moment in Ramadan can be the distinction for you between being just a regular Muslim when you meet Allah and being someone at the level of the Siddiqeen, higher than a shaheed even. And so what does it mean to seclude ourselves during Ramadan? Just to give you guys some hadith that you know, and then we'll go into practical tips. The Prophet ﷺ said in Ramadan, there are people who fast, or not in Ramadan, he said about Ramadan, there are people who fast, and their fasting benefits them nothing except that they were hungry and they were thirsty. And Allah is not in need of your fast. Now, does that mean that you don't fast? No, of course not. You should fast anyway. What he means to say is Allah doesn't need you to feel hunger and thirst. That's not what Allah is after. The point of the fast is not that you feel hungry and thirsty. That's not what Allah is after. What he's saying here is that if that's all you get from the fast, you're doing it wrong. Right? In another hadith he says, those who are fasting, you should fast from vain talk. So any talk that's not going to produce something beneficial, try to stay away from it. That means, for example, excessive joking with your friends. That means watching comedy shows or cartoons or anime or movies or what have you. I remember, I always mention this in Ramadan now because it's the last movie I can remember coming out during Ramadan. But I remember about 4 years ago now, 5 years ago, it's actually longer than that, it's probably like 8 years ago now. The Dark Knight, the one with the Bane character, came out the first Friday of Ramadan. And I'm not exaggerating. That day, before I had a khutbah that day, before I got on the minbar, I had like 3 or 4 people text me, is it haram if I go watch this movie on the first night of Ramadan? We weren't fasting that day, we were going to start fasting the next day. So they were like, it's just a few hours into Ramadan, is it haram? Of course it's not haram, and I'm not going to give them that answer one way or the other. But the point was, it was so fascinating to me. This is the way most Muslims come into Ramadan. I just gotta, I want to limit it as much as possible. When the whole point the Prophet's telling you is seclude yourself. That stuff can wait. Allah wants you to seclude yourself for a while. The more you can cut off, the more things that distract you from Allah that you can do without them. So if you spend a lot of time on Instagram, kill it during Ramadan. What good do you really get from it? If you spend a lot of time on Facebook, well, I don't know, the young guys don't do Facebook anymore. Snapchat maybe, or TikTok, if that's the new thing. Right? If that's the stuff that gets you guys, I get it, it's entertaining. Maybe there's nothing haram about it outside of Ramadan or even in Ramadan, it might not be haram. But the whole point of the month is seclude yourself as much as possible. And try to make yourself as aware of Allah as possible. So everything you don't need, just get rid of it. Right? So do away with the TV, the movies, the social media, so on and so forth. So much so that you know what most of the ulama suggest you do during Ramadan? We're fasting during the days, but they suggest very strongly that if you want to reach higher levels of taqwa and ihsan during Ramadan, you should reduce your fasting, you should reduce your general caloric intake throughout the month. So even when you break your fast, eat less on purpose. I'm going to eat just enough so that I have the energy to pray the night in prayer and work the next day. But I'm not going to eat anything more than that. So if you've never done that before during Ramadan, I don't know if you can try it this Ramadan, but I'll give you one first step to try. Cut out the sweets. And don't do it because I want to lose weight, because that's important. There are three parts of ihsan. The first one is intentionality. The first one is the why. The second one is the ibadah you're going to add. And the third one is what you're going to take away. So if you're going to take away the sweets because you want to lose weight, more power to you, but that's not what we're talking about. What I'm talking about is you make a commitment from now. When Ramadan comes in, that second plate and that third plate of dessert, that second plate of food and that third plate of dessert, that's the stuff I'm going to try to start to kick out. And I'll start with that plate of dessert. So no dessert for me throughout Ramadan. Not because I want to lose weight, but because I want to connect to Allah more. And the more I deprive my stomach, the more I can connect with Allah. You know Imam Ghazali, I don't know, how many have ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of desires? 1, 2, 3, some of the college students have heard it. You know Imam Ghazali had this way before Maslow did, by the way. It's in his book, Ihya Ulumuddin. And he mentions the following hierarchy of desires. He says, for all human beings, the primary or lowest desire is that of the stomach. You just want to eat and drink. The second one is the sexual desire. The third one is a desire for money and wealth and status. And the fourth one is a desire for power. Every time you feed one of these levels, you're going to naturally want the next. So when your stomach's full, you're going to start to think about the next thing. When you get that done with, you're going to start to desire money. And when you get that done with, you're going to start to desire power. And he maps this out across a man's life or a woman's life. That as a man gets, when the man's young, you find what really keeps him happy, he's entertained and he's eating. Once he gets a little bit older, that's not enough. I need a little bit more in life. I need the opposite gender. Once he has that and he's married, that's not enough. I need wealth. I need to have money to buy nice things for me and my family, and I need to compete with the other guys that I came up with. I need to have a nicer car, I need to have better clothes, the better house, so on and so forth. And then once you reach that, that gets boring. The next thing is, who's going to have more power? Who's going to be able to command more power in this world? And so Imam Ghazali puts out this hierarchy to say this is one of the greatest strengths of not just fasting, but of hunger itself. That the longer you keep yourself hungry, the less these other desires will be pronounced. And so he goes into a long discussion on the benefits of keeping yourself away from food inside Ramadan and outside of Ramadan. Just the beauty of reducing your caloric intake all the way to the point where he says, if you want to know, the only time, this is according to him, the only time your eating is a real worship, if you really want to test, am I eating for Allah or not? Ask yourself, am I so hungry that I'm going to eat a stale, dry piece of bread? No cream cheese, no labna, no honey, nothing. Just the stale, hard piece of bread by itself. If you're hungry enough to eat that, then know that you're eating for Allah. If you wouldn't eat that, then you're probably not hungry enough for food. That's the highest level. What we're asking for is not that. We want to go into Ramadan and say, I'm just going to reduce my caloric intake enough so that I'm not coming to Taraweeh stuffed. So I don't break my fast, and then the next thing I want to do is just lay back on the couch and knock out. There was a cartoon that came out 2 years ago of the Khaliji sheikhs after fasting Ramadan, after a night of fasting or a day of fasting and then a night of eating, and the stomach is so large that they cannot stand up even, that they just lay back and they can't get up. It's exaggerated reality though. Right? Most of us, at least not necessarily most of us, I've seen many men who after they have iftar, honestly speaking, it looks like it takes them an extra 3-4 seconds to get up from the couch. It's just too difficult. And how many times have you come to salah and you find either yourself or the person next to you can't go into ruku', can't come up from sujood because they're just too stuffed. Or worse yet, they can't keep themselves from burping in your direction. The food was too much, it's coming out of them. Right? So what we're talking about with ihsan is that I'm going to reduce the caloric intake, so I don't want those distractions in my ibadah. When I come to salah at night, I want myself to just have enough energy physically, but more importantly, I want myself spiritually ready. And when I overeat, I kill that spirituality. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce that. If you've never done it before, just keep the sweets out. If you've already done that in past Ramadans or you do that normally, then make a commitment. I'm just eating enough. And you can decide what that is. One plate, I'm going to put one small plate and eat it. Or I don't think that's enough. Maybe you're working out, I need 2 plates, whatever it is. But just enough so that I'm not hungry. You know the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who knows the famous hadith of 1/3, 1/3, 1/3? What are the 3/3? Go ahead. Go ahead, yeah.
So you should have 1/3 of food, 1/3 of drink, and 1/3 of air.
1/3 of food, 1/3 of drink, 1/3 of air. Correct. Is that the recommended practice from the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? No, that's not the recommended practice from the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Most people skip over that hadith, the first part of that hadith. You know what the Prophet says in the beginning of that hadith? He says it suffices a man or a woman a few luqmat, a few bites, a few morsels of food. Just enough to keep their back straight. And if you don't know what he means, maybe you should try it sometime. Go as long as you possibly can without eating. You'll find you'll get so hungry at a certain point, you will start to hunch over. The pain in your stomach and the tiredness that you feel will have you hunched over. Then you'll know what the Prophet's talking about in this hadith. He says it suffices for you to eat just enough so that you're not hunching over anymore. You don't feel that need to sort of press down on your stomach to hold that pain at bay. And your body feels enough energy that it can stay upright. That's the way the Prophet begins that hadith. That's enough for man. Then he says if you can't do that, then stick to 1/3 air, 1/3 food, and 1/3 drink. And so what we want to do is plan from now, what am I going to keep out of in Ramadan? To keep my energy high for the ibadah that I'm going to do and to keep my spirituality and my focus high. Now between now and Ramadan, what you should be doing in that boat, in that vein, is begin from now to reduce how much you eat. And Imam Ghazali gets very explicit in this regard. He says, don't be foolish. If you eat 3 loaves of bread a day, don't move to a half a loaf. He says, eat 2 loaves and 3/4 for however long. And then once that becomes really easy, I'm going to move from 2 loaves and 3/4 to 2.5. And then now from 2.5 to 2.25, so on and so forth. Cut out little by little, because we're not looking for quick fixes. We're not looking for short-term gains. We're looking to actually make this a transformational experience, right? We're trying to engage in the Quran in a way that Allah wants us to engage with it. We're trying to generate this spiritual state of taqwa and ihsan. And so we're going to do it little by little. You have maybe, 5 weeks, 6 weeks? Begin from now. If you're eating, 2,000 calories a day, which is the recommended from the American Health World, I forgot which organization it is, right? Not the World Health Organization, the American, I can't remember what it's called, right? I actually don't remember which organization it is. It's CDC, USDA, I don't know, right? But it's recommended is 2,000, right? You read it on every single calorie label, right? If you're doing that, cut it down to 1,900 and then down to 1,800, for example. Or if that's the way you think about these things. Or if it's that you have 2 bowls of cereal in the morning, cut it down to 1 bowl. Right? If you have 2 plates of food with your mom and your dad at night, cut it down to a plate and a half. From now, get yourself used to the idea that I'm going to reduce my food before I go in. My food and my drink. And the coffee. Well, now I'm going to be a hypocrite. So, but yes, if coffee is an addictive thing for you, I say that because I have a tough time not drinking coffee outside of Ramadan. In Ramadan, alhamdulillah, Allah makes it easy. But outside of Ramadan is very difficult for me, but this is a very good example of something I should do, right? If I'm having, let's just say I only have 3 a day. It's no one's business if that's true or not. Let's just say I only have 3 a day. All right, I'll knock it down to 2. And then once I'm used enough to 2, I'll knock it down to 1 and so on. Again, we're not doing it so that we don't, I want to make this very, very clear. It's perfectly fine if you do this stuff to prep yourself for work during Ramadan. That's not what I'm saying the niyyah is. I'm saying the niyyah is, I'm going to reduce how much I consume because in general, I want to consume less so that my spirituality goes up. That's the point of this. Allah's saying, when you consume less, you're secluding yourself from the world, you're preparing yourself for the Quran. And so in Ramadan, outside of Ramadan, you want to generate a better relationship with the Quran, and a better relationship with Allah, learn to consume less. The less you consume, the better it will be for you. As the Prophet said, there's no vessel worse that a human being fills than his stomach. It never gets filled, it's never satiated, and it drives him to all sorts of problems. So that's step number 1, preparing for Ihsan in Ramadan. Step number 2 now. Well, step number 2. Step number 1 was getting our himma, our passion, and our mahabba, our love for Ramadan up. I don't know if we did that successfully, but inshallah. Number 2 is prepare to reduce how much you're going to take in during Ramadan. And then number 3, how much are you going to worship during Ramadan? How much are you going to increase your worship during Ramadan? Now again, most of us go into Ramadan and we're just hoping to get by it. I have to fast, so I have to fast. Right? As long as I do that, my parents are going to bring me to the masjid, or I have to come to the masjid because if I don't, I'm going to look bad in front of my parents or my siblings or my spouse or whoever. So I'll come to the masjid. But I'm really just trying to blow through it. That's the way most Muslims approach Ramadan. From now, what we want to be thinking about is, what is the actual ibadah I want to do during this month? And it does not have to be something spectacular in volume. It just has to be great in its intentionality and its beauty. So if your goal is, I just want to read 1 juz' of the Quran, beautiful. If it's, I just want to read 5 lines a day of the Quran, beautiful. If that's what you can do, do it. But do it with an intentionality and a focus. I want to do this, Ya Allah. I want to connect with you, Ya Allah. Because when you do that, the Quran opens up to you. You can sit with the Quran for years and memorize it and know it. I know 3 people that went to school with me in Ghazali who were huffaz of the Quran. I've never memorized the Quran, unfortunately. 3 people who are huffaz of the Quran, none of them are currently Muslim. All of them left Islam. And it's crazy. How do you have the Quran memorized in your heart and you forget it? And all 3 of them, none of them understood the Quran. None of them understood the Quran. They weren't native Arab speakers, but that's not the problem. They didn't even understand the basics. They never put in the energy. The time was never put in to really engage with it. They memorized it because their parents insisted that you come to the masjid and you memorize the Quran. A beautiful thing to do. But the Quran only opens up to those who engage it in the right way. And so when you come to the Quran, I don't care how little it's going to be, have a goal from now, I'm going to read this much every single day. And make it realistic. If you're not reading anything now, don't come and say, I'm going to finish the Quran once in Ramadan. That's not a realistic goal. Come and say, I'm going to read a page a day. Maybe that's realistic. You have 6 weeks to prepare for it. And keep this to yourself. This is between me and Allah. This is my personal goal. I'm going to read this much every day. If you don't understand the words of the Quran, make it less, but read the translation. There's no problem with that. Say, I'm only going to read 2-3 lines, but I'm going to read the translation with it. But stick to it every single day of the month. And more importantly, plan to stick to it after you leave Ramadan. So I don't do it now. I want to make Ramadan the most. I want to have Ihsan in Ramadan. You know the sign of Ihsan in Ramadan? That ibadah is going to continue afterwards. And so if right now you're not reading anything, set a goal from now. During Ramadan, I'm going to read this much, or I'm going to pray this much, and then do it. And between now and then, slowly build up to that number. So if you're doing nothing now and you want to read a page a day, from now, start to read 2 or 3 lines. it will take you no more than 3 minutes. Even if you don't know how to read the Quran at all and you have to read the transliteration, it'll take you about 5 minutes, 2 or 3 lines. A page will take you maybe 10 minutes if you're doing this slowly. But just start from now and have that plan. And again, the point is, this isn't for your parents, this isn't for anybody else, this is so that you're engaging the Quran with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is welcoming you in to a secluded meeting with Allah. Prepare for it and take it seriously. And so, if from now we begin to energize our intentions and our passions and our desires and our love for Ramadan, and we begin to reduce how much we consume between now and Ramadan, and we begin to prep ourselves for the ibadah we want to do in Ramadan, once we enter it, inshallah, we can practice it with ihsan. We can practice it in a way where you no longer think of Ramadan as a burden or something I just want to get through. Ramadan now becomes something I really want to, I don't know, I was going to say some negative words, but I don't know how else to do it. You know, when when you're getting ready for a big exam or a big workout, or you're about to play some sporting game or something like that, you say, I want to crush it. I want to destroy it. I want to kill it. How'd you do in that exam? I destroyed it, man. I killed it. It was great. That's how we want to approach Ramadan. I want to go into Ramadan ready to make the most out of it, because Allah has brought Himself close to me in this month, and He's secluded me from everything in this month specifically so He can open the Quran for me. May Allah make you and I from those who hear what is said and follow the best of it. May He allow us to witness Ramadan, inshaAllah. May He allow us to make the most of it, and may He allow us to practice ihsan during it. Anything I said that was beneficial is from Allah, and any mistakes I made, please forgive me for it, and that was from myself. Wa jazakumullah khair, wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Are we doing Q&A now or later now? Later? Okay.
Jazakallah khair, Ustadh Zaied, for that reminder and for the practical tips. Inshallah, we'll take a 10-minute break. Please help yourself to some light refreshments. We kept the refreshments light just to apply what Ustadh Zaied said. So we'll take a 10-minute break, and then after that we will have 2 rak'ahs of qiyam with Dr. Muhammad.
So is that real? I highly doubt it. I don't know, but I highly doubt it. First thing you said, I don't know. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Like the jinn left this dunya, that no, the jinn exist in this dunya. No, no, they exist in this dunya. Yeah, they haven't left this dunya. What happened when the Quran was revealed, or not when the Quran was revealed, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was preparing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to accept the Quran, he stopped the jinn from being able to travel through the heavens, through the stars. The doors of the heavens were closed to them. That's the only thing the Quran says. But they still exist in this dunya. As far as possession goes, I mean, the Prophet said that it's true, so we believe that it's true. But I would be very wary of anyone just putting stuff on YouTube talking about possession. It's not something that I would like what possession is and what it looks like is a much longer conversation than requires. But suffice to say, most of the time, people separate between possessions. Probably.
I watched also like another video of Yasin Coffee actually talking about it and how he was like treating a guy with shizas, like he was moving the jinn, you know, like out of his body, was going like from left to right, like and then eventually came out.
Again, possession is true. It happens. I'm just leery about allowing videos to see some guy or different guys. It definitely exists. It's a reality. It's a misunderstood reality. The jinn are not powerful entities that can enter you whenever they want. It's not the way. That's what popular movies make it seem. It's not what the Prophet talks about. The idea of possession, the Prophet said, but I wouldn't trust you. You have a question. What's better? Listening to Quran or doing it? I wouldn't. So I'm going to give an answer, but that answer is not like ironclad. It doesn't mean that one is better than the other. I would normally suggest, unless you're tired, do the dhikr. Because I find it to be far more conducive to the heart being softer when you're engaging in something actively rather than engaging in something passively. So when you listen to the Quran, quite often it's passive. You're not really engaging in the meanings and reflecting on the verses. You're just enjoying the message, which is a beautiful thing. You're just enjoying the recitation. The recitation is very heart soothing, it's moving. It's a beautiful thing. But the act of being engaged in dhikr normally softens the heart a lot more and generates much more benefit. Unless you're actually engaging the Quran whilst sitting prayer, I would choose the dhikr over the Quran. But if you're just want to So when you ask someone kalam questions, you should know what their credentials are. You're kind of young, so I'm not blaming you. One of the negatives about someone like me speaking is that people start to think that I'm on the level of someone like Sheikh Osama, Sheikh Yasser, Sheikh Tanak. They're not even close. They are people who have been given, who have studied for real, with real scholars, and they've been qualified to sort of understand the legal rulings of Islam and to give answers on them. I'm not qualified to do that. They say I can speak on some issues, so I speak on them. Otherwise, I shouldn't answer these type of questions. That's why I'm not holding the answer. It's not because I don't want to give you an answer. I'm not the right one to ask. If you ask Sheikh Osama, he'll be able to give you correct instructions. There's a phone number that Sheikh Osama has on him all the time. You can text anytime with a question and he'll answer it. I'll try to get it for you. You have a phone, you want to take down this number? You want to write it down? You have a number you can text or no? Why don't you come here? We were just talking about not having speech. Just so anybody who wants to get it, can get it. Anybody who wants cake, please get it. We'll start tomorrow. We'll start tomorrow.
Assalamu alaikum. We're going to resume the program, inshallah. We're going to have 2 rak'ahs of qiyam, and then after that, we will have the Q&A session with Ustadh Zaied. We'll give people 2 minutes to get some dessert.
صلاة القيام يثابكم الله. إن شاء الله we'll resume صلاة القيام. استقيموا واستووا يرحمكم الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. يا أيها الناس أنتم الفقراء الفقراء إلى الله والله هو الغني الحميد إن يشأ يذهبكم ويأت بخلق جديد وما ذلك على الله بعزيز ولا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى وإن تدع مثقلة إلى حملها لا يحمل منه شيء ولو كان ذا قربى إنما تنذر الذين يخشون ربهم بالغيب وأقاموا الصلاة ومن تزكى فإنما يتزكى لنفسه وإلى الله المصير وما يستوي الأعمى والبصير ولا الظلمات ولا النور ولا الظل ولا الحرور وما يستوي الأحياء ولا الأموات إن الله يسمع من يشاء وما أنت بمسمع من في القبور إن أنت إلا نذير إنا أرسلناك بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا وإن من أمة إلا خلا فيها نذير وإن يكذبوك فقد كذب الذين من قبلهم جاءتهم رسلهم بالبينات وبالزبر وبالكتاب المنير ثم أخذت الذين كفروا فكيف كان نكير ألم تر أن الله أنزل من السماء ماء فأخرجنا به ثمرات مختلفا ألوانها ومن الجبال جدد بيض وحمر مختلف ألوانها وغرابيب سود ومن الناس والدواب والأنعام مختلف ألوانه كذلك إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء إن الله عزيز غفور إن الذين يتلون كتاب الله وأقاموا الصلاة وأنفقوا مما رزقناهم سرا وعلانية يرجون تجارة لن تبور ليوفيهم أجورهم ويزيدهم من فضله إنه غفور شكور